Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy Sunday. Happy spring. Yeah, it is. Yeah, we're moving that way, aren't we? Thank goodness. Yay. Well, I when I look at preparing my lessons, I really pray and listen inside and ask, okay, well, what is it that I need to learn? And what is it I need to share? I've shared this with you a number of times. And so praying about it this week, I kind of got a real awareness that for me, I got a clear awareness that it would be really valuable for me to learn to go with the flow a little more sometimes. Sometimes I need to go with the flow at times when I'm not really doing that very well. And I came across and I was reminded of a wonderful little book that was given to me some years ago, it took a long time before I actually read it, but I finally read this wonderful little book called Row, Row, Row Your Boat, A Guide for Living Life in the Divine Flow by Stephen Lane Taylor. Now, Stephen Lane Taylor was actually taught this course up at Unity in Dallas for a number of years, I understand. He's out in Sedona, Arizona now, but as I was beginning to look at that, I'm going, okay, well, that's obviously something I need to pay attention to, and I saw it on my shelf, and I picked it up, and I'm going, I like this. There's something here that really speaks to me. So I wanted to share a little bit about this idea of what it really is like and what we need to do in order to be in that divine flow and how we can be in that perhaps a little more. So I always like to start off with stories, and so I came up with a few stories here that I like to start off with, and one was about our former president, George W. Bush. And George Bush was in an airport lobby, and he noticed that a man with a long, flowing white robe was walking through, and he had a long white beard and had flowing white hair and had a staff in one hand and some stone tablets in another hand. And, George W. Bush went up and approached the man and said, "Now, aren't you Moses?" The man just kind of looked up and didn't say anything. And George Bush kind of was bothered by that, and he said, well, he got right in front of the guy. He said, well, excuse me, aren't you Moses? And the guy kept looking around and didn't say anything. And finally, he got right up in his face and he says, excuse me, aren't you Moses? The guy says, yes, but the last time I talked to Bush, I spent 40 years in the desert. But up bump. There was a young girl who was writing a paper for school, and her father she asked her father for some help with this paper, and she asked her father, what's the difference between being angry and being exasperated? Or what's the difference between anger and exasperation? And the father says, well, let me demonstrate for you. So he went over to the phone and he called a phone number just randomly. And as he answered, somebody answered the phone and he says, excuse me, can I just speak to Marvin? There's no Marvin here. Look up, use your phone book, look it up. And so he hung up and the guy says, okay. So the father says, okay, now, see, there's no one, the father heard this and said, okay, so the man was a bit unhappy, you can see. And he was probably very busy. He was bothered, he was kind of bothered and annoyed by my calling him. So he picked up the phone again and dialed again, same number. The guy gets on the phone and he says, could I speak to Marvin, please? And the guy says, there's no Marvin here. Nobody lives here. Why are you calling me? Stop bothering me. Stop calling this number. And he hangs up, and the guy says, now see, that's anger. That's anger, yeah. And so he calls again, picks up the phone, calls again, same number. The guy answers, says, excuse me, I'm Marvin. Do I have any calls? That's exasperation. And then one more I want to share with you. There's and I'm told that this was actually a true insurance letter claim from a bricklayer. It says, dear sir, I'm writing in response to your request for additional information. In block number 3 of the accident report form, I put poor planning as the cause of my accident. You said in your letter that I should explain more fully, and I trust the following details will be sufficient. I'm a bricklayer by trade. On the day of the accident, I was working alone on the roof of a 60-story building. When I completed my work, I discovered that about 500 pounds of bricks were left over. And so rather than carrying the bricks back down, I decided to lower them down in a barrel by using a pulley and winch, unfortunately, was attached, which fortunately was attached to the side of the 6th floor. So securing the rope at a ground level, I went up to the roof, swung the barrel out, and loaded the bricks into it. And then I went back to the ground and untied the rope, holding onto it to ensure a slow descent of the 500 pounds of brick. You will note in block number 11 of the accident report form that I weigh 135 pounds. And due to my surprise at being jerked off the ground so suddenly, I lost my presence of mind and forgot to let go of the rope. Needless to say, I proceeded up at a rather rapid rate up the side of the building. In the vicinity of the 3rd floor, I met the barrel coming down. And that explains the fractured skull and broken collarbone. Slowed only slightly, I continued my rapid ascent, not stopping until the fingers of my right hand were 2 knuckles deep into the pulley. Fortunately, at this time, I regained my presence of mind and was able to hold tight to the rope in spite of my pain. At approximately the same time, however, the barrel of bricks hit the ground and the bottom fell out of the barrel. Without the weight of the bricks, the barrel now weighed approximately 50 pounds. Again, I refer to you my weight of 135 pounds in block number 11. As you might imagine, I began a rapid descent down the side of the building. In the vicinity of the 3rd floor, I met the barrel coming up. This accounts for the 2 fractured ankles and the lacerations of my legs and lower body. The encounter with the barrel slowed me enough to lessen my injuries when I fell onto the piles of bricks. Fortunately, only 3 vertebrae were cracked. I'm sorry to report, however, that as I lay there on the pile of bricks in pain, unable to stand, and watching the barrel 6 stories above me, I lost my presence of mind and I let go of the rope. So anyway, this story to me gives an example of someone who is probably having a pretty bad day, wouldn't you imagine? Sounded like kind of a bad day. So the question I want to ask is, have you ever had a day or days perhaps where things seem to really go right? Things seem to go perfectly. Things are going really well. Have you had days like that? Maybe you've had several days like that. Well, this lesson and our lessons are about how we can have more days like that and not the former one. So, as I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about it, in the next few weeks we're going to explore these ideas and awarenesses and steps that we can use to actually help create those kinds of days in our lives, to help us to draw more of these wonderful flow kind of experiences in our lives where things really are going smoothly, things are going well. And that's not to say that they're always going to go exactly as we planned. It's important to understand that. But they're going to go either as we planned or they're going to go well beyond what we thought was possible, or at least as well as we had planned. Make sense? So it'll be this or something even better, as we like to say in Unity. So I want to read to you actually a little paragraph in here from this book by Stephen Lane Taylor. He says, this is about learning how we can be more effectively in that divine flow in life. He says, when you're in the flow, life ceases to be a struggle. You don't have to fight for what you want or defend what you have. When you are in the flow, your every need is met so easily, so completely, so consistently, there's only one reasonable explanation for it. There must be a higher power at work on your behalf. It makes no difference whether your picture of the higher power as a very real supreme being or some kind of cosmic consciousness energy. The effect is the same. It feels as if something infinitely greater than yourself is operating in this world and you are directly benefiting from its assistance. I love the way he says that. I love the way he says that. And how many of you have had that kind of experience? How many of you would like to have more of that? I think we all would, right? I think there's something, in many ways, I think what brought us here to Unity is a part of that, isn't it? And I think that we can really practice ways that will help us to move into a greater awareness and a greater understanding of this wonderful flow that's possible in our lives. And so one of the metaphors that came to him as he was thinking about this and meditating on it is a wonderful little song. And we're going to do a little exercise here. So I'm going to ask this group A and this is group B. And I'm going to ask you to stand up if you would. So we're going to do a little meditation exercise that's going to teach us some divine principles of how we can stay in this flow a little more. And so I want to start off with this side, and then we're going to go over there, and I'll lead you over there. So we're going to start off this way. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Row, row, row your boat, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. You may be seated, thank you. We do have a choir, don't we? All right. So the metaphor here is this idea of row, row your boat. And I just think it's a beautiful metaphor. And one of the things that Stephen says is that our boat really is our self. Who you are. It is your being here in the world. And he breaks it down into this awareness, this idea that there is our physical self, which is our body, which is a vehicle in which we are moving through this world, right? And so we're moving through this world, and there are passengers in this boat. Not just a passenger, but there are passengers in this boat. And one of the passengers in this boat is our mind. So we've got our body that's a passenger, that is a vehicle in this world, and our mind is like a steering mechanism that we have for the boat. And I thought about that, and I thought that's a really kind of nice metaphor, that our mind really is our steering mechanism. It's what really puts us in the direction that we want to go. And so think about different things that you want to experience in your life. And one of the things that we know in Unity is that there really is a creative power and impulse that we're a part of, and that we are creative beings, and we are learning how to be more effective in our creative abilities. And a big part of that is how we are using our mind to help direct our physical being as well as the rest of our nature. And then there's also our spirit, and he describes our spirit or our soul really as the heart of our boat. And so in some ways it really is that kind of that guidance system that kind of helps us to move in the direction of our dreams, move in the directions of those desires that we have in life, move in the directions of those things that are for our higher good, those things that are really for our overall well-being. I like those analogies, and to me this is like in many ways, this is very much like interpreting Scripture metaphysically. It's funny, kind of funny, because a lot of these symbols you can find in Scripture, and you can find that there's a lot of relationship between the symbolism that you find in Scripture and different aspects of our nature and our being. In fact, I really do believe that's one of the most valuable ways that we can understand many of the Scriptures in life. So Stephen says that our oars are our free will. So he's thinking about this in terms of a rowboat. And if you're in a rowboat, you have oars, And those are what are there to help us make the choices and the decisions that will move us in the directions of our dreams. Move us in the directions of those things that are a blessing in our lives, those things that can be really more beneficial to us. So I like that imagery, and it really speaks to me, and I hope it's something that's valuable and speaks to you. I want to say a little bit more about the boat. Let me step over here. One of the things he says is whatever destination you choose, whether it's near or far, significant or frivolous, you have free will, and it empowers you to move in that direction. So that doesn't mean that it's necessarily up to you, however. It's not up to you alone to reach where you want to be, because there's this, beneath all of this, there's this amazing stream that's flowing. So let's talk about that imagery a little bit. Let's talk about the stream, gently down the stream. So let's think about the streams of life. If we think about nature, one of the things that you'll find over and over and over again, the theme of nature is flow. If something is not in a state of flow, what's happening? Stagnation. Yeah. If it's not in a state of flow, what's happening? It's dying, yeah. And I'm going to suggest to you that even the stagnation and dying, there is an aspect of flow even to that. Think about it. Because everything, yes, deteriorates, but that's also a change, isn't it? It's also a flow of some form. It may not be the form that we are choosing at that moment, but it's there. Death itself is a transition, isn't it? And it is a flow, and there's a flow that can happen even during the process of moving through that experience. And it's valuable for us to pay attention and notice those, but there is this amazing stream that underlies all of life, all of our existence, all of what's going on around us. There's this amazing stream, and that stream is a flow of divine. In unity, we say there's only one presence and one power in the universe. That presence and power is God, the good, omnipotent. And in Hinduism, they have an idea of Brahman. And Brahman really is the ultimate of benevolence. I love that term, benevolence. It is a divine benevolence. There's a divine benevolence that's at work in the universe and in our lives. And it does flow. It flows into our experiences, and it flows through our experiences, and it flows out into our life and into our world. And so part of our learning and growing spiritually is how to direct our boat in the stream. Well, we do that by rowing, and we're going to get into rowing a little bit more actually next week. I've got a whole lesson on rowing prepared. But I want to talk a little more about this idea of stream. See, the stream, the first time we put our faith in this divine stream, sometimes that's a little bit scary. But when we began to practice this idea of putting our faith in this flow of something greater, something good, working in our lives, we actually align ourselves even more with it, and we find that there is a benefit and a blessing that oftentimes is beyond what our understanding might have been. So you and I set plans, we have goals, we have desires in life, and the universe is there always trying to say yes to these ideas. Say yes to our preferences. Say yes to the good that we are seeking and desiring in our life. And it's always trying to say yes, but sometimes it says yes, but there's something even better. And so sometimes we find that we don't experience exactly what we thought or what we planned, but something better comes along. Something better happens. Something better moves us into a different space and into a different place in life. He gives an example of one time when he was heading to work one day, and he was caught up in traffic, and nobody here has ever had that experience, right? Caught up in traffic, and he got this awareness that this traffic was really a part of the divine flow. And so he had a decision to make. Well, is he just going to go with the traffic and go with this divine flow, or is he going to try and find some side streets and try and cut around all the different side streets and try? And he had an appointment that he just absolutely had to be at work, and he had to meet one of his coworkers to give him some very valuable information that was just essential for a presentation that he was going to do. And the guy had 15 minutes. Had a 15-minute window to catch up with this guy. He says, I've got a meeting that's going to end at this time. I have to leave no later than 15 minutes after that meeting, or I'm going to miss my plane. So he had this window of time that he had to be at work. And as he was sharing this story, he said, I just decided that I was just going to go with the traffic and just go with the flow and trust that it was going to work out. And so he finally goes along and he gets to work, and it's actually about 20 after, and he thinks, okay, well, it's done. He's gone. There's just no way that I can. So the information's not there. The presentation is not going to work. It's not going to happen for him. And so he's going up in the elevator, and as he goes up in the elevator, he opens a door, and there's a guy standing there. And so he rides down the elevator with him, gives him the information. The guy goes off, does a presentation, and does a fantastic job, and they got this great deal going. And what he realized was, what happened was that the meeting had run long. The guy was able to just barely catch his plane, but everything seemed to work out. It all worked out. Anybody had experiences like that? We've had experiences like that, and Carl Jung calls these synchronicities. When synchronicity, a lot of people call synchronicity, or sometimes I call it coincidence. I like to say that coincidence is God wishing to remain anonymous. Sometimes things happen in our lives in ways that are just absolutely fantastic for us, and it comes from experiences that we think are not really working in our favor. Before Julie and I came here, a few years before actually, things were going pretty well in our lives. Julie was working for Alaska Airlines, as a matter of fact, and I was, working. I think I was not working at Microsoft at that time, but I was working in the ministry at that time. And we had a real wonderful vacation and got this amazing surprise when we came back. Julie got laid off. And, I have to say that for both of us, it was a bit of a shock, and we were not at all prepared for that, and we also did not really expect it at all. But one of the things that we realized later on, it was easy to realize later on more effectively, we knew somehow that there was some good in that, but it was a little hard for us to see and experience right off. But one of the things that did is it led Julie to the opportunity to actually learn yoga and then become a yoga instructor, which is one of her loves. And so it actually also, I realized looking back on it now, we would probably still be in the Northwest had she not gotten laid off. And we have come here into a place where we both know that we have been so greatly blessed to be a part of this experience. And Julie's actually teaching yoga, and she's doing other wonderful work with a wonderful nonprofit here in town. And it's just, you can see in the hindsight what a blessing this has been. And yet at the time, it didn't seem that way. But there was a divine flow at work, and we were able to actually get some very clear guidance that this was it was time for us to move in this direction. And so we began listening to that a little more and paying attention to that flow and that stream that was moving us in a particular direction. And it was moving us in a direction of our desires and dreams, because we had set out there desires and dreams of what we really wanted to know and experience more in life. And this was really actually ways that these were being fulfilled. So there's an example of how sometimes the divine flow doesn't look like what we think it's going to look like. But there is a flow that's always working in our lives, and it's always working to move us in a particular direction, and that direction is always in our favor. It's always to our benefit, even though sometimes it doesn't seem like it, it doesn't look like it. There is a flow in life, and part of our work is to learn how to maneuver in that flow and learn how to not necessarily resist it. I'm also very familiar and really like the works of the Abraham Hicks, because they talk about this same kind of idea. And one of the things that they talk about is the importance of recognizing which way you are rowing in the stream. Because sometimes we find ourselves rowing in the stream and we're rowing against it, aren't we? We're trying to go in ways that are not necessarily working for our highest good. And one of the things that they say is that nothing that you truly want is upstream. Let me say that again, because that's a very valuable concept and a valuable awareness. Doesn't mean that you don't have to put some effort into the rowing at times. But if you are rowing against the stream, you're actually rowing in the direction away from what you really truly desire, and perhaps and you're rowing away from what is for your highest and best good. And oftentimes you can determine and tell that by the ways you are feeling, your highest and best energies of acceptance and love, what I call the anabolic energies. You guys ever get tired of me saying that term perhaps, but anabolic energies are those life-enhancing energies, those things that really move us in a direction that lift us into a higher vibration, that move us into a greater experience of well-being and love and peace and joy. And then there's those energies that are catabolic, that are struggles, that are really challenges, that are hurtful and painful and life-depleting. And so it's valuable for us to notice which way we are rowing. If we're rowing in directions that are continually moving us into energies that are taking energy away from us, that are depleting us, that are making us feel less than or limiting or blocked in some way, it's valuable for us to notice and pay attention to what we're using our sense of will, our free will, to create and to focus on. So can you see yourself in that rowboat? Can you see yourself in that rowboat? Can you see yourself using the tools of your mind to focus in the direction that you want to go? And can you see yourself using the oars of your free will to row in a direction that's going to move you a little bit closer, perhaps, to what is a fulfilling experience and to days in life that are unfolding, not like the guy who was the bricklayer, but perhaps working in ways that things just seem to kind of click. We've had those experiences in life, and I'm convinced that we can have even more of those. And I, for one, am open for that. I hope that you are as well. So that's really the essence of my lesson for this week. It's a short lesson, but I think it's very succinct. Next week, I'm going to invite you to come back, and we're going to talk about what is involved in rowing our little boat. And we're going to ask 5 questions that will help us really determine if we're rowing our boat in a direction that's moving us with the flow, or whether it's moving us in a direction that's away from the flow. Hope you'll come back and be with us next week. Let's move into our meditation time. So I invite you to just breathe in and out. And just allow your breath to be relaxed and peaceful as you begin to bless the body temple. As you bless it with thoughts of love and peace and relaxation. Let your awareness be in and on your breath, and allow your breath to be moved into and out from your heart space. And feel the natural flow of that breath. Relax into that natural flow and allow yourself to relax and let go into the greater possibilities of peace. And I invite you in your mind's eye to imagine and see yourself not just in a rowboat, but as a rowboat, moving in a stream. And feel the flow of the waters beneath you. And know that those waters are moving you, just as Spirit is moving you, to a greater experience of good, of benevolence in your life. And you have a choice of whether to just drift like a piece of driftwood and possibly get hung up on the banks or on rocks. Or you can participate in that flow. You can participate in allowing the stream to move you in directions with your assistance and guidance from Spirit to move you around the blocks and the rocks and the waterfalls of life, and move you over those in ways that are helpful and supportive and healing and transformative. Take a deep breath in your heart space again, and just allow yourself to trust and know that you are a part of that divine flow, and that flow is moving you with your assistance to beautiful shores, to great possibilities, to an even greater good in life. And let yourself allow this process to unfold. Bring into your awareness circumstances and situations in your life where you would like to see and experience even more of that flow, of that good, of those blessings. Let your heart be set on a clear intention, and just see if there is a way, and ask yourself, how can I participate in this flow of moving me to a deeper experience of well-being, a greater experience of blessing, a greater good in life. And in your heart and mind, simply be open to the allowing of Spirit, showing you when and how and where to row, and when and how and where to let go. And take another nice deep breath. Breathing into the heart space. Take one more nice deep breath, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Be present here and now, and give thanks that you are in that divine flow. And so it is.